Hi, how's it going? My name's Gaby. I'm one of the second years in Deakin Medicine this year, um, and I'm doing my presentation today sort of from the perspective of someone who wasn't quite sure that medicine was for them. So if anyone sort of is feeling the same way, hopefully you can relate a little bit and know that it's totally okay to feel a bit unsure. I've got some questions that I've heard from undergrads in green, so I'm going to have a go at answering them from my perspective as well. So this is my pathway to get into medicine. It looks kind of quite streamlined and boring, and in some ways it is. But for me, it felt a lot more like this. So if you're currently somewhere in this pathway and you're feeling like you're a bit unsure and things are really complicated, that's totally okay. I think, to be honest, for most people, it feels that way. So, to start from the beginning, I grew up in Warrnambool. It's a regional town by the beach, about 3 hours from Melbourne. I grew up with my mum, who's a mental health nurse, and my sister, who's a vet. And I went to school there too. I really liked school. I was interested, I had a lot of fun at school. Was never the smartest kid in the room ever. I never have been. I never will be. Um, I'd thought about medicine at one point in year 12, but I decided that I was going to pursue teaching. So I think at that point I was pretty keen on being a science and an English teacher. And then after school I took a gap year, which was really, really good for me. I felt like I needed a break from school, and it gave me a bit more financial independence as well by the time I got to uni. And I was really lucky as well. I had a job lined up at my school as well, so it wasn't too stressful finding work. And then after that, I headed to La Trobe Uni, and I started my science degree. The plan from here was to do my science degree and then transition into a Masters of Teaching. And in order to do that, all I needed to do was pass my degree. So there really wasn't any pressure to get any particular marks, which I think for me was really, really lucky, because it meant that I took subjects that challenged me. So I did physics and chemistry. They're things that scared me a little bit in school, but I absolutely loved them, and I still look back on that, and I'm quite proud that I got through that. But also sort of be things that I really just wanted to study because I thought they were fun. So I tried genetics, that's why chromosomes in the middle. I took astronomy and archaeology, and I absolutely loved it. And I think if you can pick subjects that you enjoy, you really should. Your life isn't going to start once you get that acceptance letter into medicine. It's happening right now. So try and enjoy your undergrad as much as you can, definitely. And I met some great people as well. There's some of the girls I lived with at our Shrek themed housewarming party. And then I got to about halfway through my degree, and I looked at my results and sort of thought, they're not too bad. And if I wanted to apply into med, I possibly have the option to do it. And so that's when I started to think about sitting the GAMSAT. So my attitude going in was, I'm just going to go and see if it's an option. I'll probably only apply once, and from whatever happens from that happens. And it will probably go poorly. I will probably fail this test, but at least then I'll know that I gave it a go, and it won't be sort of this question mark. And that's quite a scary thing to do. I found it quite scary. I wasn't sure what people would say about me applying to medicine. And some people were a little bit more supportive than others. And also you're sort of putting your hand up to do something where you might fail, which is really quite scary. So if anyone's sort of started the process or even considering it, it's showing a lot of courage, and well done. I think it's great just to give things a go. So the first step was sitting the GAMSAT. So I did that at the start of my third year. I think that photo was taken about 2 weeks beforehand. I was trying to divide without a calculator, which was a challenge. Still a challenge probably. But I sat it and it went well. I passed it, and that was my goal going into it as well. I didn't know what a good score was, what a bad score was. I just knew that if I passed it, I would put in an application. So that was the next step. I put in an application to Deakin, Wollongong, and a couple of the Queensland schools as well. And part of Wollongong's application is a portfolio. If that's something you're looking at doing, I'd just give yourself plenty of time, because it is a bit of an involved process, and you need references. So it's nice to give them a bit of time to sort of consider it. And then I ended up with an interview, and I was really chuffed just to get that far. And at Deakin, my first preference. So once again, I just sort of went in and had a bit of a go. And then there's this terrible, I can't remember how long it was, maybe a month or so, where you're just sort of waiting and you're not sure what's going to happen next. But about 5 minutes after I took that photo, I got this email. And I was really chuffed with that. I gave something a go, and it worked out in my favour. The only issue was, all of a sudden I had this really big choice to make. I sort of had this really concrete plan. I would finish school, do a gap year, do a science degree, and then maybe do an honours year. I think by then I'd decided I'd like to do a bit of research, but then eventually do teaching. And all of a sudden there was this big choice I had to make, and it is a bit of a weird time when you're finishing undergrad. If you're anything like me, the plan just sort of ends, and it was probably the first really big decision I had to make. And it was scary. It was really scary because medicine was a bit of an unknown. So this is one of the questions I heard from the undergrads, and I think it's a good one. How do you know that you're sure? I think there's a big culture going into medicine that you have to be 100% sure and 100% committed. And my answer to that is it's probably not going to be popular, but you're possibly never going to be 100% sure. And that's really hard, because I think probably medicine attracts people who want to be quite sure. But you do have to be okay with the fact that it's always going to feel like you're taking a little bit of a leap, even if you do think about it loads and loads. And it's worth thinking about as well that even if you are super, super sure, and you get into medicine, you'll have days where you wonder if medicine is for you, and that's completely fine and very normal. As far as how I figured out which path to take, this is how I went about it. So I took my piece of paper and I wrote down all the possible reasons that I would want to go into medicine. And I had to be quite honest, because to be honest, some of the reasons I didn't really like, so they sort of fell under the reasons that don't cut it heading. And then there were other reasons that I was really happy with. So these were the sort of ones that I didn't want to rely on. So if I was just going into medicine to prove that I was smart enough just to be able to call doctor, to earn a lot of money, or because I was scared to say no to the opportunity, then I wasn't really happy with that. At the end of the day, I think if you're not enough without an offer for medicine, you're probably not going to be enough or feel like you're enough with one. And I didn't really want to be making sort of fear-based decisions. But luckily I had a big list of reasons that I was happy with. So I really like the idea of learning about the body, and I like people, and the idea of being able to help people when they're really vulnerable was something that really appealed to me. I wanted a job where I was going to be learning and working in a team and challenged. And the other really good thing about medicine is I didn't feel like I was giving up the opportunity to teach and to do research, because you can do that as a doctor as well. And this is one of the reasons why I think not being sure is actually kind of a superpower, because it meant that I really had to analyze why I was doing it. And there was no kind of hiding behind any reasons. I had to be really honest. It also meant that I was a bit more relaxed during the application process. And the other really big thing was that I really made a deal with myself that if I wasn't happy in medicine, even if I did choose it, I would be okay with leaving and doing something else that would make me happy. So for me, I think you can kind of almost see it in a positive. So I started medicine, I've had a ball, I've met some awesome people, I've even been able to travel overseas and use some skills over there. Yeah, it's been really fun. A couple of questions that popped up sort of pertaining to that after you get into medicine point were these two, and they're both really good ones, so I just thought I'd have a bit of a chat about these ones as well. So I've heard a lot of people ask, how do you keep a balance? Great question. I'm sort of inclined to think that no one in the world has a perfect balance. And I say that because I don't think it's about being happy all the time and never having anything bad happen. I think it's far more about how you cope when things are off balance. So things are always changing, and there's always going to be things that kind of knock you down a little bit. So I think the way to keep a balance is to try and be proactive. So when you can not be in situations that put you off balance, or at least prepare for them if you can't avoid them, and to be able to sort of react appropriately. And I'll show you a little bit about what I mean. So these are sort of thoughts that I think everyone has, and I've sort of in my own head been trying to push them over to the other side. So instead of thinking I have to study everything right now, I'll learn what I can, and just because I don't know it now doesn't mean I won't ever learn it. Instead of I should be studying now and that like study guilt, I really try and make it so that if I'm studying really well, but if I'm resting, then I'm resting really well. And both sort of parts of that are really important. Instead of saying you can't do something, you just don't know it yet, and you just need a little bit of time. And this one's probably the most important one, the most practical one down the bottom. I used to say all the time, oh, I'm just tired. But I think it's really important that you ask yourself, am I starting to burn out, and do I need to change something? And burnout's something that people talk about kind of all the time, but I've found that it's kind of hard to put into practice what you actually do about it. So this is my sort of way of dealing with that. And I think it's to know the early symptoms, so the more subtle things. And yeah, as I've said, these are different for everyone, and it's important to pay attention to what burnout feels like for you. So for me, when I'm getting sort of more cynical than usual, when I'm not interested in uni and I'm tired and I'm snapping at people, it's generally a sign I'm a bit overcooked and I need to do something to change that. And depending, on the day, maybe I need to go watch a movie, maybe I need to go outside, maybe I need to go home for the weekend. So you've got to figure out what is sort of an early symptom for you, and also what you can do if you are feeling like that. Okay, the other thing that was mentioned a little bit was sort of this idea of imposter syndrome and feeling like you've taken someone's place if you go into medicine, even though you're not really sure. I can absolutely relate to this. I think during my first year, especially that first half, at any time anything didn't go to plan or I got bad feedback about not doing something very well, sort of this is how I felt, like this big guilt monster had just kind of walked in. and you sort of start thinking, well, it must be an accident that I got in. I've taken someone's spot that wanted this more than me. They would have been a better doctor, and it's really tough. But I think I wish I'd had somebody sort of say to me that actually, no, you haven't taken someone else's place, even if you're not sure. And I say that because the application process and applying isn't easy in any way. It takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there and say, I'm going to try and do something that's really hard. And every step of the process is hard. The GAMSAT's a challenge. Getting all the application material in on time is a challenge. An interview is scary. And so if you have put yourself through all of that, then you have as much right as anyone else to be in the course, even if you're not sure. That's really important. So my sort of take homes. So there's no one way to get in to medicine, and there's no one type of person they're looking for. You see it a lot. We see it a lot in class. When people have different ideas and different points of view, it's actually really good to hear from all kinds of people. So you don't have to sort of mold to be a certain type of person. If you are yourself and authentic, that's good. You don't have to be the most intelligent person in the room to apply. I think as I've written there, if you're interested, you work hard, you're open-minded, you're kind, good communicator, or you're willing to work on these things and improve, then you're already a lot further along than somebody who just is intelligent, I can guarantee. If you're not sure, that is completely okay. As I've said, for me, it almost felt like an advantage because I was really honest about why I wanted to be there and my values and what I wanted out of life, really. So yeah, for me, it was an advantage. I hope it wouldn't deter others just because you're not sure. And just don't forget to cut yourself some slack. If you're doing your best, that's the best you can do, and be really proud of that. Celebrate the wins as they come as well. So on the next page, I've just got some tips for sort of each stage of the process. I didn't want to bombard you all with lots of advice because I know that's a lot. So you're welcome to screenshot this. I don't have all the answers, and there's some other really good videos up as well. But yeah, you're more than welcome to have a read through these, and if any of them help you out, that would be great. But thank you so much for sticking around, and get in touch with Med Mentors if you have any questions. They're great, and I'll see you later.